Chapter 21 Mysterious Bracelet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. She plays the role of a good wife and mother very well. Walking among the ministers, Renee watched everything with a smile. The resentment made Rhaegar tremble beside him. Sister, my hand hurts when you hold it. Rhaegar made a sound of grievance and wanted to withdraw the little hand held by Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra quickly let go of her hand. I'm sorry, I just forgot that you were here. It's okay, please pay attention to your image, there are many people staring at this kind of occasion. Rhaegar called her little hand softly, kindly reminding her sister. Raising his head and glancing around, Rhaegar was suddenly attracted by a face. Daemon was seen standing next to Viserys at this time, watching the brother and sister-in-law reveal their tenderness to each other indifferently, and a corner of his mouth curled up in a subtle sneer. Rhaegar frowned and tilted his head to see more clearly. Suddenly, Daemon turned his head and locked on Rhaegar accurately. Rhaegar was startled, and couldn't help but take a step back. No, what am I afraid of? Can he still eat me? Thinking of his identity, Rhaegar became more determined not to admit defeat and stared at him with wide eyes. There is no tit-for-tat imagining. Daemon looked Rhaegar up and down with interest, nodded with a smile, and stopped paying too much attention. Rhaegar nodded indifferently, and Rhaegar was a little disappointed, but also a little happy. What a scary look, so oppressive. Rhaegar secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but in his mind he was thinking about Daemon's sneer just now. What's the meaning? Why did he show that contemptuous look when he saw his father and Alicent in love? Rhaegar suspected that he had seen it wrong, but the slightly curved corners of Daemon's mouth could not be forgotten in his mind, and he was sure that smile was not fake. Forget it, no one else has seen it, I'll just hide behind them. Rhaegar thought like this and took 2 steps behind Rhaenyra. The banquet began and the crowd took their seats. Viserys called Rhaenyra and Rhaegar forward to greet Daemon. It goes without saying that Rhaenyra had idolized this uncle since she was a child. Viserys took Rhaegar's hand and introduced to his younger brother. Rhaegar, my eldest son, you don't need to say anything to know. Daemon nodded, trying hard to smile a kindly smile on his stern face, which was a bit nondescript. Viserys did not force his brother and said with a smile, blessed by the 7 gods, Rhaegar had an unexpected encounter not long ago and was cured of his frailty, which relieved my serious illness. Daemon said, I heard about this. The magical fruit presented by White Deer sounds like a story. I didn't believe it the first time I heard it, but the will of the gods has always been full of profound meaning. Rhaegar is a Targaryen favored by the gods. Viserys stared at Daemon with strange eyes, and what he said shocked everyone present. The king's eldest son, the favor of the White Deer, and the name of the gods' family came from the king's mouth. What does king mean? Could it be that, as secretly rumored outside, there are signs of changing the successor? One sentence was like a heavy hammer hitting everyone's heart. Rhaenyra's expression changed slightly, and she looked down at her younger brother who was getting more energetic. Daemon didn't care, touched Rhaegar's head, and blessed, I hope you will always be healthy and the pain will stay away from you. The most outrageous is Alicent. Her gentle face froze for a moment, and she secretly dug her nails into the slit of her thumb to force a smile. She knew that this day would come sooner or later. It turned out that Rhaegar was terminally ill and did not have much time left to live. Once the king's eldest son died, she could push her own son Aegon to the throne. Even if the king does not allow it, the ministers in the parliament will secretly support her and propose to the king to change the prince. But Rhaegar's miraculous recovery undoubtedly did not give her a fatal blow. From now on, even if some people could not bear to see Rhaenyra as a female heir, he will only support his eldest son Rhaegar. She would not support her second son, Aegon, at the expense of the near and far. Have all my years of hard work been in vain? Alicent felt desperate and his thumb was bloody. In order not to let anyone notice his gaffe, Alicent lowered his head silently and lowered his sense of presence. Facing his uncle's blessing, Rhaegar felt uncomfortable and politely responded, Thank you, uncle. I said some ignorant things before, I hope you don't take it to heart. This is the first time we meet, and there will be a new future in the future. How could his little thoughts be hidden from Daemon? He could see through them at a glance. Daemon rolled up his sleeves, took off a silver metal bracelet, and said deeply, after the war on the Stepstone Islands ended, the soldiers plundered a lot of treasures. Countless gold, gems of different colors, and jeweled ornaments. Rhaegar listened very carefully and was very interested in the war. Daemon handed over the bracelet. this bracelet was found in the treasure chest at the bottom of the crab feeder's box. It is made of Valyrian steel and is given to you as a meeting gift. Valyrian steel. That's precious indeed. Rhaegar's eyes shone, but his pride made him control the hand he wanted to extend, and looked at his father expectantly. Viserys nodded and said, "There is no need to refuse the gift your uncle gives you." "Okay, thank you uncle." After receiving the approval, Rhaegar immediately put aside his dissatisfaction with Daemon and snatched the bracelet with a swish. Never mind any old grudges, at this moment alone, Daemon is his good uncle. Beautiful bracelet with carved patterns on it. Rhaegar happily held the bracelet and put it on her slender wrist. Rhaenyra couldn't help but hold her forehead. "Maybe you should put away the bracelet. Your wrist is too thin and it's easy to lose it." "Humph, I have always known how to cherish hard-won gains." Rhaegar hummed in dissatisfaction and raised his wrist to admire the bracelet forged from Valyrian steel in the sunlight. This is good enough to be considered a family heirloom. This exploration mission begins, and the target is the mysterious Valyrian steel bracelet. The system prompt sounded suddenly, which made Rhaegar, who was already happy, even more happy and couldn't hold back the corners of his mouth. With a thought, the system panel appeared. Mysterious Valyrian steel bracelet, exploration progress, 0.5%. After half a year, Rhaegar was extremely happy to have another opportunity to explore. He looked at Daemon sincerely and said gratefully, "Thank you very much, Uncle Daemon." The sudden move left Daemon confused, but seeing that my nephew really liked it, he happily accepted it. Viserys patted the back of Rhaegar's head and taught, "You don't need to say thank you twice, especially to your relatives." "Yeah, Uncle Daemon is my relative." Rhaegar nodded like garlic. His handsome little face was very happy. Don't mention anything about relatives or not. Now when Daemon slaps Alicent, he has to applaud and say the slap was crisp. "Okay, put away your embarrassment of having never seen the world, and act like a prince." Rhaenyra, who didn't watch, slapped her brother hard on the back of the head, squeezing out warning words through her teeth. Rhaegar covered the back of his head, unconvinced. "One or two of them hit me on the head. Who is responsible for beating me, stupid? You have become a fool. I will keep you in the little dark room of the Red Castle." Rhaenyra smiled kindly. Daemon is a psychologically complex man who fully demonstrates the genius and madness of the Targaryen family. Remember to follow up for updates. Chapter 22 Special Dream. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The banquet lasted very late, and the passion hidden in the veins made the nobles unleash themselves in the dim environment. Before the ballroom dance, Rhaegar resigned, returning to the room to rest drowsily. At midnight, the bright moonlight shines through the glass window and shines on Rhaegar's bedside. In his sleep, Rhaegar frowned unconsciously and said something incomprehensible. At this time, Rhaegar fell into a nightmare. When he was young, he was drifting in the vast sea. The sky was dark and gloomy, and the fog shrouded the direction, making him unable to see his fingers. Rhaegar stood on a small island, shouting loudly but unable to make a sound. The silence around him was terrifying. At some point, the calm water became choppy, and waves gradually appeared. The tide overflowed the island, and the cold water covered Rhaegar's ankles, forcing him to retreat to higher ground. The island is no more than a small piece of land, and the highest hillside cannot withstand the vast ocean. Rhaegar struggled to climb up a coconut tree. The seawater below had spread to the middle of the trunk and was surging upward. The fear of annihilation filled his heart, and Rhaegar was unable to resist and watched the water level rise. Suddenly, a shadow flew over Rhaegar's head, covering a large area below. Rhaegar wanted to look up, but his body refused to obey. Hiss. Ga. Just when he was anxious, familiar and unfamiliar roars echoed from all directions. The harsh sound broke through Rhaegar's eardrums, giving him a painful suffocation feeling. Water, a lot of water, cold. The sudden change shocked Rhaegar's mind. The young figure sleeping in the outside world couldn't help but shake his head, and sweat broke out on his forehead. No, do not want, that the seawater in the dream submerged Rhaegar's ankles, and fear instantly woke him up from his sleep. He opened his eyes and screamed in panic. Dong dong, there was a knock on the door, and Illich's voice came from outside the door. Are you okay, Prince? Hoo, there is no water, I am still in my room. Rhaegar looked around at a loss, at the familiar layout and soft feather bed. After a while, when Illich was considering whether to open the door and come in to check, Rhaegar responded. "I'm fine, sir, it was just a nightmare." After hearing this, Eric felt relieved and said softly, "You can shout out if you have any orders." After spending some time together, he had long become accustomed to Rhaegar's habit of having nightmares. "At most, I feel a little sympathetic to the little prince's uneven sleep." Rhaegar said nothing more to Eirik, a person curled up in the quilt, hugging the pillow melancholy. This nightmare was very realistic, scarier than any of his previous dreams. Feeling the pounding heart in his chest showed how stimulated he was. "It's another nightmare. If this is the dreamer's talent, I would rather not have it." With a shadow cast over his heart, Rhaegar thought of the golden talent introduced on the system panel and muttered melancholy to himself. He hasn't had any dreams recently, and was already returning to his normal sleep state. Tonight's nightmare came suddenly, catching him off guard. Rhaegar felt that he must be extremely embarrassed at this time, like kittens and puppies wandering in the cold wind. "This exploration is over, please pick up the lost treasures." Just as he was feeling lost, the system prompts broke the gloomy atmosphere. Rhaegar stretched out his arm and looked at the silver bracelet on his wrist, remembering that the exploration mission was not yet completed. Mysterious Valyrian steel bracelet, exploration progress, 100%, the system panel appeared, and Lei Jia suddenly thought of the time it would take to explore a relic. This exploration mission starts around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, taking a look at the weak barrier of flames. According to the usual time when it goes out in the early morning, it is probably about 10 o'clock in the evening. It seems like 8 hours. Rhaegar calculated silently while picking up the blue halo that fell on the bed. The relic was picked up successfully, under detection. The test was successful and it was determined to be an excellent relic, a magical instrument of a pyromancer. The pyromancer's thing, I wonder what kind of treasure it is. Curiosity about magic overcame fear, and Rhaegar kept activating the relics. Congratulations, the pyromancer's magic tool has been activated. You have obtained Space Bracelet, level, excellent, blue, function. The bracelet contains 3 cubic meters of space inside and cannot store living things. Evaluation, it is a magical product dating back to the ancient Valyrian period. Its spatial attributes make it extremely valuable, and the noble dragon kings also compete for it. Snap, the Valyrian steel bracelet worn on the wrist shook slightly, and a layer of lines cracked on the surface, turning into dust and falling off. When Rhaegar looked at the bracelet again, all the traces that had been polished by time had disappeared. The overall color changes to a low-key silvery gray. The pattern is more exquisite, as if a skilled craftsman has carved it again. A bracelet made of magic, a treasure that all the dragon kings of ancient Valyria are after. Taking off the mysterious bracelet, Rhaegar was amazed. I didn't expect that I would get such a treasure by accident. I really should thank Uncle Damon again for sending me such a generous meeting gift. Rhaegar couldn't help but sigh. The explorer came with instructions for using the space bracelet, and Rhaegar read them carefully. I see, Valyrian steel contains magic. By carving space runes on this magic metal, you can create a space magic weapon. Rhaegar was greatly shocked and deeply admired the wisdom of his ancestors. Valyrian steel is very scarce, and wizards who can learn the space runes are even rarer. A space magic weapon that comes out every few hundred years is already a high yield. During the ancient Valyrian period, only the most powerful few dragon king families could possess space magic weapons, which were regarded as inherited treasures. Among the 40 dragon king families, the Targaryen family is not outstanding in strength and can only be ranked in the middle and lower reaches. Therefore, there is no record of space magic weapons in the family, and those dragon king families who possess space magic weapons have long been destroyed by the natural disaster and buried in the ruins of ancient Valyria. Holding the space bracelet, Rhaegar's breathing became heavier and his eyes gradually blurred. This thing must not be spoken out, otherwise it will definitely cause disputes. Without hesitation, Rhaegar took the fruit knife on the bedside table, cut the belly of his index finger, and smeared blood on the surface of the bracelet. Buzz, the bracelet glowed with a hazy halo and disappeared in an instant. At the same time, Rhaegar felt an inexplicable connection between himself and the bracelet. The bracelet is forged by the strongest pyromancer and has the function of bloodline recognition. My Targaryen blood is enough to contract this bracelet. Becoming the owner of the bracelet, Rhaegar thought, and the bracelet slowly shrank to a size suitable for him to wear. Rhaegar put on the bracelet, touched the fruit knife with his hand, and silently said income, that with a whoosh, the fruit knife disappeared out of thin air. Rhaegar felt a fruit knife inside the empty bracelet. The novel experience aroused Rhaegar's curiosity, and he put the fruit knife back and forth. Even various items in the room, tired of playing, Rhaegar also found many treasures from inside the bracelet. A mountain of gold, a few stacks of books in ancient Valyrian script, a badge with a dragon pattern, the rest are clothes and sundries of unknown styles, all classified as rags. The gold made Rhaegar's eyes light up. He is a prince, but the treasury does not belong to him. In his previous life he had never left the Red Keep and had no place to spend money. Now that he was free, the gold just filled his pocket. So he didn't have to worry about not having enough pocket money. Not every Targaryen can hatch dragon eggs. The brothers Aegon and Aemond are representatives. The protagonist will tame his own dragon after a short period of ethical competition. Guess, it's that dragon. Chapter 23 Dragon Training Manual. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rhaegar poured out all the gold and spread it all over the bed. He lay on the glittering bed, enjoying himself even though the distance was uncomfortable, taking the time to open the book he had taken out. Rhaegar, who was proficient in Old Valyrian, started reading. The book records a brief history of a dragon king family named Dejalian. That dragon pattern metal is the emblem of this family. It is carved with two intertwined and surrounded giant dragons, full of life. The Dejalian family is a large family with a long heritage in ancient Valyria. There are more than 300 dragons recorded. At its peak, the family had an astonishing 67 dragons alive at the same time. Regardless of age or age, such a foundation ranks at the forefront of the 40 Dragon King families, second only to a handful of families. The space bracelet on Rhaegar's hand is one of the inherited treasures of the Dejalian family. The holder is the heir of a certain family. The bracelet was lost outside for unknown reasons. The more Rhaegar read, the more frightened he became. He gradually sat up straight and read every line of text seriously. The book briefly introduces several Dragon King families that are allied with the Dejalian family, and roughly analyzes the strength of these allies. After roughly reading the first book, Rhaegar picked up the second one. What is recorded in the book is not that important this time. This is just a detailed account of the vassals of the Dejalian family. Changing books again, Rhaegar kept absorbing the knowledge in the book. When I didn't know which book to read, I finally found something useful from the historical explanation. Dragon Habits. Legia was refreshed and prayed secretly. The content is about dragons. I hope to get different results. What is a dragon? How was the dragon born? The connection between the dragon rider and the dragon. The opening chapter describes how dragons came to be, and introduces when dragons were discovered and tamed by the ancient Valyrian civilization. They are all commonplace things, similar to the theories analyzed in books written by some bachelors. Rhaegar didn't care where the dragon came from, he just wanted to know how the dragon egg hatched. Unfortunately, this is not mentioned in the book. There are frequent records of dragon masters taming dragons. With the blood of a dragon, you can connect with the dragon, climb on the dragon's back and become a dragon controller. The Fire Warlock has concluded from research that the wisdom of dragons exceeds that of beasts and is second only to humans. Giant dragons have a long lifespan, and their size continues to grow over time. Many dragons are too large to fly in their later years. Rhaegar looked through it carefully and suddenly saw a key line of annotations. The dragon belongs to the sky and the wilderness. The dragon kings let the dragon fly to various places to build nests in their free time. During war, they use magic horns to summon their distant partners. Magic horn. It's another magic item that can summon dragons. Rhaegar had never heard of such a magical horn. The Targaryens all give orders to the dragons in the ancient Valyrian language, and there are no special dragon training tools. Continue reading silently. Dragons are not slaves. They are the flesh and blood compatriots of the Dragon Master. If the dragon is bound by chains and returned to the sky, it will be severely cursed. Seeing this, Rhaegar frowned. You cannot treat dragons like slaves, otherwise you will be cursed. Rhaegar immediately thought of the dragon's lair in King's Landing. It was a huge building built during the reign of Rhaegar I to house the dragons bred by the Targaryen family, Balerion, Rhaegar, Bormather. Many powerful dragons once lived in the dragon lair. At this moment, there are at least 3 dragons living in the dragon lair: Dreamfire, Caraxio, Syrax. They are all permanent residents of the dragon's lair, especially Syracuse. Syrax, Rhaenyra's dragon, had yellow scales and settled in the dragon's lair after hatching from a dragon egg. Rhaegar had never come into contact with dragons, so he didn't know the difference between the dragons in the dragon's lair and the dragons outside life. But he knows one thing: any dragon that enters the dragon's lair will be chained. Dragons are fierce creatures with a strong sense of territoriality. When multiple dragons live in the same place, conflicts are inevitable. In order to protect the young dragons, the Bachelor of the Academy proposed to imprison the dragons in the dragon's lair in shackles to prevent the dragons from killing each other. Staring at the page without blinking, Rhaegar believed the warning in the book. These books come from the freehold of ancient Valyria. It was a note left by the powerful Dragon King family that far surpassed the Targaryen family. It's not some bullshit city bachelor's presumption. If you find an opportunity, you should give this book to your father and let him make a decision. Rhaegar thought secretly. He finished the book quickly, and Rhaegar carefully stored it in his bracelet separately for fear of damage. Precious knowledge is worth $1,000, and every word above is where the Targaryen family's fortune lies. There were many more books, and Rhaegar flipped through them slowly. When people are focused, time passes very quickly, like a fleeting moment. One night passed in the blink of an eye. It's daybreak. The morning sun dispels the darkness and brings warmth to the earth. Leia, who had not slept all night, suddenly found the sun shining into the room, emerging from the ocean of knowledge. Rhaegar glanced at the door cautiously, quickly put away the books and the bed full of gold, and put them into the small bracelet on his wrist. He didn't want anyone to find out his secret, at least not now. 7 hells, when will the dark circles under my eyes disappear? Without looking into the glass mirror on the bedside table, Rhaegar pointed at a pair of panda eyes and lamented. Fortunately, books will not disappoint those who taste them. Rhaegar stayed up all night reading and discovered many small details that had not been spread among the Targaryen family. For example, taming a dragon requires more than giving commands. You must also have the tenacity to believe that you can tame the dragon. If the dragon tamer is not strong-willed, his subconscious mind does not believe that he can tame a dragon, then, the dragon will notice his cowardice and will never agree with an unconfident weakling. The best way to train a dragon is to actively climb on its back and give instructions loudly to the dragon. Let the dragon feel your strong desire to conquer, soar into the sky and cross the sea with you. In this way, the dragon will become one with the mind of the dragon rider, with excitement in his heart. Rhaegar simply washed up, held his dragon egg in his hands and kissed it vigorously before going out. Express your wishes loudly, hurry up and hatch, the sky is waiting for us. That he firmly believes that he will become a dragon rider. Any doubt in oneself is a betrayal of the ancient Valyrian blood flowing in one's veins. When he opened the door, Rhaegar immediately noticed the look in Illegitimate eyes. Those brown pupils were full of encouragement. Sir, could you please stop looking at me with such ambiguous eyes? This troubles me very much. After breakfast, Rhaegar expressed his opinions to Illich. Eric was slightly startled and said, "Okay, but I agree with your ambition." Rhaegar's face was slightly red and he pretended not to care. Don't pay attention to those trivial matters. There is still a tournament to watch today. Yesterday, in order to welcome Daemon, the tournament ended early. However, the tournament lasts for 7 days in total and will be held every day. The arrogant Dornishman is still controlled in King's Landing. Today there will be a powerful knight who will defeat him and get the king's reward. The Targaryens are not the strongest Dragon King family, and their ranking can only be considered mid to lower. This can be seen from the fact that Anar only took 5 dragons with him when he crossed the ocean. During the time of Aegon the Conqueror, 50 years later, the only existing dragons were Balerion, Meraxes, and Rhaegar. Until the dance of the blood dragons, the number of dragons exploded as never before. Special praise goes to Syracuse. 1 dragon hatched 7 dragons, which can be called a model of early eugenics. Chapter 24 Shilio's Sword Skills. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tournaments have always been a symbol of the kingdom's prosperity, and many nobles are keen on them. When Rhaegar arrived at the scene, the audience was already buzzing with people. He caught sight of his father on the high platform and approached briskly. When I got closer, I realized that there were people sitting around my father. Viserys sat at the head of the throne, with Prime Minister Leonor on the right and Lower on the left. His uncle Daemon, Rhaegar, sat at the head of the throne. Under Leonor, which was not an insult to her status as heir. I don't know if last night's banquet was a success, but Viserys had a smile on his face at this time. Seeing Rhaegar arriving, he smiled and waved, "Come here quickly. You had an early rest last night. You have to spend time with your father today." The bachelor said that children should go to bed early and get up early so that their bodies will grow faster. Rhaegar defended himself and came to Viserys very honestly, being held in his arms and sitting on his lap. Rhaegar generously enjoyed his father's love and picked up a plate of fruit on the table. Rhaegar below noticed his empty wrist and asked with a smile, "Why don't you see that bracelet? Don't you like it very much? It's too big and it's inconvenient for me to wear." Rhaegar dealt with it casually. The bracelet is inconvenient to carry in its normal state, and can easily arouse suspicion after shrinking. Rhaegar hid the bracelet in the incubation container containing the dragon eggs until he could find an excuse to use it later. No one cared about this little episode and waited for the martial arts tournament with peace of mind, in order to express yesterday's bad breath. The events such as mounted shooting and melee are cancelled. Let's get straight to the point, the duel. Two players take the stage in the duel. One of them is naturally the Dornish youth. He is the real protagonist of today. The other one disappointed the audience. A short, curly-haired swordsman. He didn't even wear any armor, only wearing light leather armor. It's Shiliu Freer. Rhaegar, who had a wide field of vision, immediately revealed the identity of the curly-haired swordsman. Viserys cast a curious look. "Rhaegar, have you seen any of the swordsmen in the field?" Rhaegar nodded. "We had tea together yesterday. He is a wandering swordsman with good skills, and he wants to be loyal to me." Speaking of this, Rhaegar couldn't help but smile. Viserys frowned slightly and rubbed his chin with his hand. "Let me guess, you must have not promised him." "Yeah, I won't trust a dangerous guy with unknown origins." Rhaegar ate a red grape and answered casually. "You did the right thing. I got some news this morning that I can share with you." Viserys ruffled Rhaegar's hair and winked at Leonor. Leonor stood up, took out a small piece of paper and read. Shiliu Freer was born into a small noble family in Braavos. After he became an adult, he joined a believer organization and often performed dangerous missions. 2 months ago, this man assassinated a big shot in Braavos. He was wanted throughout the country and smuggled himself to Westeros in advance. Half a month ago, I pretended to be a wandering dancer, gained the trust of a lord's daughter, and came to King's Landing in a carriage. Yesterday afternoon, during the banquet time after Prince Daemon returned, he signed up to participate in the tournament and proposed a duel with Digga Orleans. After telling Shiliu's origins in one breath, Leonor took a sip of red wine to moisten his throat and glanced at Daemon opposite him without any trace. Daemon looked calm and had an attitude that it had nothing to do with him. Rhaegar listened to everything quietly, sincerely admiring Lord Leonor's intelligence capabilities. Viserys saw his eldest son's shock and smiled happily. "I'll teach you a truth. There is no airtight wall in the world. Honor and faith are the destination of the strong." "I remember, father." Rhaegar listened obediently to his father's teachings. Seeing him so obedient, Viserys felt his vanity satisfied. "I decided to teach my eldest son some ways of being a person and doing things from time to time. The duel has begun." Rhaegar's clear voice interrupted the exchange between father and son. In the duel arena, the two players took their positions. As the referee blew the horn, the Dornish youth circled Shiliu with guns and flowers on their arms, looking for flaws. Compared to yesterday, the young man from Dorne was much quieter. "I wonder if he was frightened by Kolachu." Shiliu stood sideways, holding a one-handed sword in his hand, and stood quietly. "Little dwarf, who asked you to come here to die?" Dornish youths habitually sneered and taunted, with the intention of irritating Shiliu. Shiliu put one hand on his back and spoke casually. "Everyone will die. But I think I haven't had the time yet." "Really? But I saw your death day." The Dornish youth slowly approached with a gun. "Talking about death will bring about death, and maybe you will be the one who dies." Shiliu always maintained the movement of holding the sword with one hand. "Short swordsman, I will cut off your legs and turn you into a true half-man." The Dornish youth struck first, stabbing out a tentative shot. He moved very quickly, and his spear looked like a long snake. However, Shiliu moved faster. Before the tip of the spear came close, Shiliu hit the barrel of the spear with his sword, causing the spear to deviate from its trajectory. Then, he strode forward with his right foot and slashed the Dornish youth's elbow with his sword. The blow was successful, but Shiliu did not pursue it, but retracted his feet and continued to stand. In the angry eyes of the Dornish youth, he wrote lightly. Short. When your head falls to the ground, you will realize my stature. Stimulated by the words, the Dornish youth was filled with rage, but caution told him to be patient and not to act rashly. For a time, the duel ground reached a deadlock. Shiliu stood there, and the Dornish youths did not dare to attack and surrounded him. Such a lackluster duel would not be recognized by the audience, and it would not fail to attract scoldings, urging the two of them to take action quickly, or the curly-haired swordsman takes out the Dornishman's head. Either the Dornishman kill the curly-haired swordsman as soon as possible, and a better knight chops off the Dornishman's head. Listening to the noise coming from outside the field, Shiliu sighed. I originally wanted you to live a little longer, but the withering of life is as ruthless as running water. Don't talk nonsense. I won't be afraid of a dwarf who is not as tall as a horse. Despite the scolding, the Dornish youth still did not take the initiative to attack. Shiliu snorted. You are wrong. My height is longer than the horse's back. I have measured it. After the words fell, before the Dornish youth could react, Shiliu had already moved. His legs were like riding the wind, quickly approaching the Dornish young man. The young man from Dorne was frightened, and with one move of his spear, he swept through the entire army and forced them back. Dang clang. Shiliu withdrew from the scope of the gun, knocked the back of the sword against the barrel of the gun, and smashed the tip of the gun to the ground. Lifting his foot to step on the tip of the spear, Shiliu took advantage of the short disarming period to quickly stab the Dornish young man in the chest with his sword. Poof! A mouthful of blood spurted out, and the Dornish youth instantly lost the ability to resist. He loosened his grip on the spear and stared at Shiliu in disbelief. He didn't understand why he died so hastily. You, sneak attack. The Dornish youth glared at Shiliu unwillingly, but was kicked to the ground by him, pulling up the Dornish youth's hair and exposing his neck. Shiliu's face was filled with regret. Your teacher only taught you skills, but didn't tell you to cherish your life. After that, he raised his iron sword high and chopped off the Dornish youth's head. The monthly pass is 30, the collection is 300, and I owe 2 chapters and have not been issued. The collection will probably break 500 the day after tomorrow, so I will reissue the 3 chapters together. Thanks to Tianxuanxing for the 100 points reward. Chapter 25 The King's Mind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Well done, short swordsman. Well die, Dornish bastard. Shiliu won the duel and was immediately greeted by countless cheers and cheers. The referee asked him if he should continue to compete. Shiliu carried the iron sword on his back, bowed to the king and others in the audience, and smiled. Of course, I want to win this game. Viserys had a somewhat favorable impression of the foreign swordsman who killed the Dornish youth, and watched as if he were watching a show. Shiliu is an outstanding swordsman. He fights all the way in the arena and defeats several opponents one after another. The contest lasted until noon. With the sun high in the sky, Viserys drank a lot of wine and admired Shiliu's elegant swordsmanship, and was in a good mood. Feeling that the sun was getting warmer, he called off the martial arts competition. Viserys stood up from the chair, relieved his tired waist, and said with satisfaction, "What a hearty competition!" Following his movements, the eyes of the audience turned to him one after another. Invite the swordsman from the foreign kingdom to come forward. The king wants to speak to him. Viserys ordered the attendants behind him. The attendant nodded, quickly walked down from the auditorium, and whispered to the referee. Soon, Shiliu walked to the edge of the duel field, knelt on one knee and looked at the high platform. Viserys looked down condescendingly and asked puzzledly, "Swordsman, why don't you come up to the stage?" Shiliu put the sword on his knees and said loudly, "I fight for honor. When I win the championship in the martial arts tournament, I will devote myself to His Majesty." Honor. Viserys was noncommittal and said with great interest, "There are 5 days left in the tourney. If you can win the championship, I can grant you one wish." "Thank you for your kindness, Your Majesty." Shiliu thanked him humbly. Viserys stopped waving for him to leave, took Rhaegar's hand, turned around and left the venue. As soon as the king left, the other guests naturally followed. After returning to the study in the Red Keep, Viserys left his son and daughter behind and asked questions. "Aren't you curious why I promised that swordsman?" Rhaegar looked confused. Rhaenyra shrugged and said boringly, "You once said that the best way to see through a person or a thing is to observe over time." "Very good, it seems you still remember what I said." Viserys smiled slightly. "A qualified person in power will nip risks in the cradle. In the meantime, we can fully investigate the source of the risk." Rhaegar said confusedly, "If we don't take action in time, won't we suffer backlash?" "That's right, so what I want to teach you is to always be aware of potential dangers and don't take it lightly." Viserys gave the example of the Stepstone Islands War and said, "The Stepstone Islands are located between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait and are a very strategic location. When the Three Women Kingdom invaded, do you know why I didn't take the initiative to send troops?" Rhaenyra's expression paused and she stared at her father for a long time before saying, "Because you don't want to start a war and be questioned by the whole country." Wrong. Strictly speaking, the war on the Stepstone Islands was about protecting the country. Later generations will only record the king's bravery and greatness, defeating the hateful pirates of the Three Women Kingdom. Viserys disagreed with her answer. He looked at Rhaegar and asked, "What do you think?" Rhaegar frowned and said uncertainly, "Because someone will fight against the Three Women Kingdom." "Yes, that's right. Rhaegar, you are very talented." Viserys clasped his hands and laughed, praising without hesitation. The Three Women's Kingdom invaded the Stepstone Islands. The first and most severely affected family was the sea serpent Corlys family. He will never sit idly by and ignore it. Rhaenyra was puzzled. So what? Let the pirates plunder your people, let the sea serpent sound the horn of war, and win the victory and honor of the war on behalf of the king. In her opinion, the king's responsibility should be to defeat the Three Women country without hesitation, instead of indulging his ministers to send troops and affecting the royal power. Faced with his daughter's doubts, Viserys was not angry and patiently explained. "When the Three Women's Kingdom invaded, your mother died in childbirth. Rhaegar was comatose when she was born and could not be the heir. According to tradition, my brother Daemon is naturally supported by the ministers and is ambitious for the Iron Throne. And I insist on choosing my daughter, you, as my heir." Later, a fierce quarrel broke out with Daemon, and he was driven out of King's Landing in anger. As he spoke, Viserys looked at Rhaenyra expressionlessly. "Do you think the situation at that time could the royal family bear the risk of starting a war? But we have dragons and lords from all over the place who have sworn allegiance." Rhaenyra tried to argue with her father. "Dragon? There are dragons in Dragon Cave and Dragonstone Island. How many dragons could go on the battlefield at that time? Even if an army is sent to attack, who should be the commander-in-chief on a rough sea?" Viserys asked rhetorically. Rhaenyra's face froze, and she realized what the problem was. Viserys said with a serious face, "At that time, the royal family had no dragons that could go on the battlefield, and the most suitable candidate for commander of the navy was the sea serpent Corlys. Daemon has Calaxio, and I can also go to war with the army." Rhaenyra was still about to argue, but Viserys interrupted directly. "Daemon was driven away by me personally. He just lost the chance to become the heir. Will he remain loyal to me or you, the heir, regardless of his past grudges? Never. I won't lower my face and ask Daemon for help. Syrax is a young dragon who has never been on the battlefield. I am not stupid enough to send the newly selected heir to the battlefield, waiting for the bad news that you have been assassinated one day." The sharp words were like a sharp sword, piercing Rhaenyra's fragile heart. She was speechless, knowing that was the truth. Viserys stopped lecturing his daughter and said instead, "Looking at the current situation, the royal family only sent 3,000 soldiers. The sea snakes Corlys and Daemon, bearing the stigma of starting a private war, tried their best to defeat the Three Women Kingdom for the kingdom. And what are their contributions and rewards? Wrapped in years of hard fighting, spending countless manpower and material resources, just to occupy a deserted stone archipelago." Viserys picked up the wine glass and took a sip, his eyes calm. "They won't get anything. The family of the sea serpent Corlys was severely wounded by this. They left the Stone Steps Islands and returned home in despair to lick their wounds. Your uncle Demon spent a large number of the second sons who followed him, abandoned the crown and the stepstones and returned to King's Landing, bowing his head to my brother and begging for peace. In the same time, the heir I chose grew up smoothly, and the kingdom was peaceful and peaceful. Walking to Rhaenyra's side, Viserys said word by word, "My daughter, do you understand?" Rhaenyra was struck by her father's foresight. Her simple mind had never imagined so many twists and turns. For a moment, the light and shadow of the father in front of me intersected with the father in his memory who showed a flattering smile to everyone. Both familiar and strange, Rhaenyra pursed her lips, lowered her head and said, "Father, the seven gods have given you unparalleled wisdom, but I have doubts about you, and I am deeply ashamed of this." As a king, Viserys was indecisive, but he was not ignorant of politics. Thank God for the favoritism and the reward of 2,000 points, thanks to Cave 13 for the reward of 100 points. Chapter 26 Dreamwalker. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Viserys patted his daughter on the shoulder and whispered, "Don't worry, you still have a long way to go. Sooner or later you will learn how to be a person in power." "I'm so sorry, father." Feeling her father's deep love for her, Rhaenyra's eyes turned red and she took the initiative to throw herself into his arms. "It doesn't matter, the father should clear away the difficulties and obstacles and pave a smooth road for his children." Viserys smoothed the ends of her hair and whispered comfort. Upon hearing her father's words, Rhaenyra felt even more uncomfortable, and she arched in his arms. Okay, don't let Rhaegar see your joke," Viserys said teasingly. "Humph, he wouldn't dare." Rhaenyra snorted dissatisfied and obediently got out of her father's arms. "What do you think?" Finally, he glanced at Rhaegar without forgetting the threat. Rhaegar, who had no sense of participation, he was really speechless. The family was having a good time chatting, and suddenly the two of us started to flirt with each other. It was already very embarrassing for me to be alone on the side. "What else do you want from me?" Viserys picked up Rhaegar and reminded him, "Don't bully your brother. He is much more talented than you in some aspects." Rhaenyra was noncommittal and turned her head away in disbelief. Viserys smiled and asked Rhaegar, "Tell your sister, what did you learn from this incident?" "Do you really want to say it?" Rhaegar glanced at his sister hesitantly. "Of course, excellent qualities should not be buried," Viserys affirmed. Rhaegar nodded and said slowly, "A condensed phrase appeared in my dream, which is called killing with a borrowed knife." "Kill someone with a borrowed knife?" Viserys was startled, comprehending the unheard phrase. After a long silence, he laughed and said, "That's right, it's just a borrowed knife to kill someone." "What a profound phrase that encapsulates a lot of wisdom." Viserys said to Rhaenyra, "How about it, do you see your brother's wisdom? Everyone dreams. Rhaegar's dream is just weird." Pride prevented Rhaenyra from admitting that she was inferior to Rhaegar. No, Rhaegar's dream was not ordinary. "Do you remember Daenerys the Dreamwalker?" Viserys sounded serious. Daenerys Targaryen, the girl known as the Dreamwalker, relied on the prophecy of dreams to save the Targaryen family. Rhaenyra spoke of her origins easily. Viserys touched Rhaegar's forehead and said softly, "I used to pay little attention to you. Until the past 6 months, Illich reported to me that you often have nightmares. I think that should be the symbol of the Dreamwalker." Rhaegar did not deny it and whispered, "Maybe, but I don't like this talent. The nightmares make me miserable." "Rhaegar, listen to me." Viserys was extremely serious. "Our family has produced many dragon masters, but few dreamwalkers. Compared with the power of prophetic dreams, what is the intimidation of a dragon? All your dreams, including sweet dreams and nightmares, may contain some kind of warning. You should accept it readily and treat every dream rationally." Rhaegar leaned into Viserys' arms. "You can clearly feel your father's body trembling slightly, which is caused by the excitement that cannot be concealed." Looking up, he saw tears in his father's eyes. "When your sister was young, I had a dream that will always be engraved in my mind and will never be forgotten. I have been pursuing that dream so hard and paid a heavy price for it, but I still got nothing." Having said this, Viserys took a deep breath and said, "Now that you have a healthy body and the talents I dreamed of, I should be satisfied. Rhaegar, remember my words, don't live up to your gift and regard it as a burden." Staring at his helpless father, Rhaegar remained silent and raised his hand to wipe away his tears. "I will, father." Rhaegar said silently in his heart. After talking about the issue of the eldest son, Viserys knew that he was out of control and had no intention of continuing the conversation. He told the siblings to go back to their rooms and rest, wanting to be alone. After walking out of the study, the siblings walked aimlessly in the long corridor. Rhaenyra suddenly asked, "Can your dreams really predict predictions?" "Most of the time it's just weird clips that are hard for me to understand." Rhaegar was honest and kind. "Really, what have you dreamed about?" Rhaenyra stopped and knelt down to look at Rhaegar. Rhaegar pulled away unaccustomedly, and an idea flashed in his mind. Thinking of what happened last night, pretending to be mysterious, he said, "I had a dream last night, and it was so scary that it woke me up." "Say it quickly." Rhaenyra couldn't wait. Rhaegar rolled his eyes and muttered, "I dreamed of an invisible and intangible dragon. It said it wanted me to be its dragon master." "Since you can't see or touch it, how do you know it's a dragon?" Rhaenyra interrupted in confusion. "I heard its cry, it was very loud." Leia said angrily, "Also, don't interrupt me when I'm talking." Okay, keep talking." Rhaenyra did not bother to argue with him. Rhaegar continued, "But the dragon said that he cannot meet me yet because there is something disgusting to him in King's Landing." "What is it?" Rhaenyra couldn't help but ask. Rhaegar said seriously, "Dragon's Lair." "Why, the Dragon's Lair has existed for many years, and many dragons have nested in it, including my Syracuse." Rhaenyra didn't know why when she heard it was a dragon's lair. Rhaegar continued to fabricate. "The dragon said it belonged to the sky and the wilderness, and the dragon's cave was narrow and cramped, which would limit its growth. It also said it didn't want to be shackled or chained like a slave." "Long really told you that? Could it be that you were making it up?" Rhaenyra was deeply suspicious and stared at Rhaegar distrustfully. "Believe it or not, this is what happens in dreams." Rhaegar broke free from Rhaenyra's restraints and hummed softly, "I will tell my father about this. I believe he will not doubt my dream." "Yes, but since the establishment of the Dragon's Lair, the bachelors have taken good care of it and there has never been any mistakes." Rhaenyra stated objective factors. "How do you know there are no bad guys in The Bachelor?" Rhaegar made malicious assumptions about the old city maester. From beginning to end, he disliked those bachelors who wore rings around their necks. "Maybe you are right. Father said that you should believe in your dreams." Rhaenyra did not argue and encouraged her brother to pay attention to his dream. Dreamwalker is an ancient talent, and every Targaryen who possesses this talent cannot speculate with common sense. She didn't want to discourage her brother. The siblings chatted for a while, then went their separate ways and went back to their rooms. Rhaegar lowered his head and moved forward. The door to the room was not far away. He was still thinking about Dreamwalker, expressed on the system panel. Rhaegar Targaryen, talents, Dreamer, Gold, Longevity, Green, Bloodline, Ancient Valyrian Dragon King, 12%, Skills, Old Valyrian, Proficient, Relic, Blood and Fire, Fire Resistance plus 50%, Comment. The rich bloodline of the Dragon King shows his excellence even in the ancient Valyrian period. Viserys' biggest dream is to become a Dreamwalker and have the power of prophecy, because he once dreamed that he had a son in the firelight, wearing a conqueror's crown. 3 more chapters will be added tomorrow, which are 30 monthly passes and 300 and 500 collections respectively. If you want more, add more, vote more, and support more. Chapter 27 Helena. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rhaegar brought up the system panel and looked at the talent column. Without much introduction, it just marks the golden quality of the dreamer's talent. The highest quality relic he had ever encountered was Balerian's skull, which was red and legendary. The level of quality is probably legendary level, red, epic level, purple, excellent level, blue, good level, green. Whether there is a lower level below the good level remains to be discovered. Above the legendary level, it is basically judged to be golden quality. This shows how valuable the dreamer is. He did have many dreams, about dragons, flames, wars in the future. There are all kinds of strange products from the unknown world. What's more, there have been highly targeted prophetic dreams. The white deer he had dreamed of, he actually appeared in Yulin, befriended him, and helped him gain health. Hearing his father's story changed his mind about his nightmare. In my heart, I began to pay attention to the dreamers. Natural ability, Golyalu. Suddenly, the sound of rolling items came from behind, pulling Rhaegar out of his thoughts. Turning around warily, Rhaegar looked around, because he was called by his father to talk. Illich was on holiday tonight and was not with him. Langbuting heard the sound and felt a little insecure. There was no one in the corridor behind him, just a delicate rubber ball rolling on the ground. It was now night, and the deep corridor was empty, except for a rubber ball rolling. Unexpectedly, Legia's face suddenly turned pale, and his scalp felt numb. Whose ball is it? Why are you playing around in the middle of the night? Afraid of returning, Rhaegar plucked up the courage and shouted loudly down the corridor, "Don't worry about whether there are any dirty things, just shout loudly before talking, at least 10,000 steps back. It would be better to shout to attract the servants who are keeping watch at night." Rhaegar's voice echoed in the silent corridor, and no one answered. Glancing back, the door was right in front of me. Rhaegar swallowed and secretly moved back. At this moment, there was a sound of light footsteps, which seemed to be leather shoes with cowhide soles stepping on the wooden board. Rhaegar happened to turn around and saw a white shadow flash past. "Brother, do you play ball?" A pretty little girl appeared in the corridor, holding a ball and looking at him expectantly. White skirt, silver hair, snow-white skin. Seeing the face of the visitor clearly, Rhaegar's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot, and he suppressed his anger. "Helena, why did you sneak out to play with a ball without sleeping in the middle of the night?" The little girl is Rhaegar's half-sister, the little princess Helena. Helena leaned against the corridor wall with the ball in her arms, and Nono said, "Aegon plays with the ball during the day, and I play at night." Looking at her thin little figure, Legi stepped forward and said, "Why are you playing at night? Children should go to bed early and get up early." Seeing her brother, whom she rarely interacted with, approaching, Helena was startled and lowered her head. "Aegon didn't let me play with the ball, so I had to play secretly while he was sleeping." Legia was stunned when he heard this. "If he doesn't play with you, why don't you care about your mother?" Helena shook her head gently. "Aegon will play with me when mother is here, but he won't play with me when mother is gone." "This Aegon, how can he be a brother?" Rhaegar was so angry that he held Helena's little hand. "I'll take you back to your room to rest first. Tomorrow I'll ask the craftsman to make a ball for you alone, so you don't have to stare at one." Helena remained unmoved and leaned against the wall without saying a word. "What's wrong? Why are you unhappy?" Without pulling the petite Helena, Rhaegar asked again. Helena just shook her head and said nothing, holding the ball with one hand. Recalling Aegon's past style, Rhaegar carefully asked, "Are you afraid that Aegon will steal your ball?" Helena raised her head and glanced at him, biting her pursed lips without saying a word. After hesitating, Rhaegar suggested, "Then you put the ball here with me and take it out to play when you want to play without letting Aegon see it." Helena's purple pupils shone brightly, her little head straightened, and she whispered softly, "Okay, I'll give the ball to you. Aegon doesn't dare to snatch it." He reached out and handed the ball in his arms to Rhaegar. "Don't look at the little girl who is usually silly, like a gourd with a saw beak." In fact, he was very thoughtful and knew that Aegon did not dare to provoke Rhaegar. Rhaegar shook his head and laughed. "That's not it. I will give you a new ball tomorrow, and give Aegon the old one to play with." Helena's pink face bloomed with a smile, and she no longer resisted Rhaegar's lead to lead her away. Helena's room was on the same floor as Rhaegar's. Originally, she and Aegon lived with their biological mother, Alicent. Now that he has baby Aemond, Alicent really can't stand the boys crying, so he cleaned up 3 rooms and placed 3 children in them. According to Helena, the attendants who took care of her these days were often called upon to do work, and she and Aegon stayed together. During the day, this was why Aegon was often bullied and could only run out to play during the night break. Rhaegar did not doubt it. During this period, the Red Keep welcomed Rhaenyra's return and held a tourney. Being short-staffed is normal. After sending Helena back to the room, Rhaegar leaned on the door frame and warned, "Don't run around anymore. There will be evil dragons in the Red Castle at night. Be careful of being eaten." Rhaegar pretended to show his teeth and claws to scare the little sister. Helena was not afraid at all, covering her mouth and snickering. The little girl is quite courageous. Seeing such a cute expression, Rhaegar raised his hand to pinch her cheek. Before she could succeed, Helena suddenly shuddered and her smile disappeared instantly. "What's wrong with you, Helena?" Rhaegar was a little worried when he noticed the change in her. Helena stared at him and said nervously, "The hungry wolf has set its sights on the lamb." "What do you mean, Helena? Did you see and hear something?" Rhaegar immediately thought of the rumors about Helena. Combined with his talent as a dreamer, it is speculated that Helena should have a similar gift of prophecy and have a premonition of something. However, Helena changed her previous closeness and closed the door silently. Rhaegar was locked out. He wanted to knock on the door, but he raised his hand but hesitated. Helena's state was obviously not right at this time, and it was probably some kind of self-protection after a premonition. It may not be a good thing to rashly wake her up from this state. "Helena, you have a good rest. I will remember to order a rubber ball for you." After calling softly against the door, Rhaegar stopped staying and returned to his room. He still has many ancient books stored in the space bracelet that he has not yet read. If you want to understand the dreamer's talent, you might want to start from this aspect. He paid special attention to the lineage column on the system panel. Rhaegar Targaryen, Bloodline, Ancient Valyrian Dragon King, 12%. Since awakening the Explorer, the lineage column has changed frequently. Initially there was only 5% in the brackets, but after obtaining the same source of blood and fire, it skyrocketed to plus 8%. It will continue to increase slowly. Rhaegar guessed that the percentage number represented the purity of his bloodline, as mentioned in the review column. The rich bloodline of the Dragon King shows his excellence even in the ancient Valyrian period. After half a year, the blood purity reached 12%. More than twice as high as it was at the beginning. The disappearance of the plus before the percentage should mean that the effect of blood and fire has reached its limit and will no longer increase. Go back and look through the book. There are many Dragon King families in ancient Valyria. What is the use of blood purity? After Viserys reminded the dreamer of his talent, Rhaegar attaches great importance to all his advantages and is unwilling to waste any potential. Thanks to the hot-blooded netizen Wang Mao for the reward of 1,500 points, thanks to Gong Yuhang for the 100 points reward, thanks to Beihu Qingjiu for the reward of 100 points. Thanks to a digital netizen for the reward of 100 points, 3 more chapters have been added today. I hope you can vote monthly and invest a little if you don't have money to add motivation to the author. Chapter 28 Rumors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The sky is clouded over, the sea is rough, the wind howled incessantly. Rhaegar's frail figure climbed up a coconut tree and stared at the rising water in panic. The cold water flooded my ankles and gradually swallowed my calves together. He wanted to shout for help, but his throat seemed to be blocked and he couldn't make a sound no matter what. Rumble. A bolt of lightning struck in the dark sky, like a silver bottle exploding. Deafening, dark clouds rolled in the sky, and suddenly it began to rain heavily, washing away the helpless Rhaegar. It's so cold. Where is this? The cool rain soaked Rhaegar's skin, and emotions arose in his heart. Hiss. Ga. Along with a thunder, the roar of a giant beast came from the horizon, echoing continuously. Rhaegar raised his head blankly, and with the light of lightning, he saw a huge creature breaking through the thick dark clouds, flapping its wings and soaring into the distance. Rhaegar wanted to see the giant beast clearly, but there was only the noisy sound of rain in his ears. Rain flowed down his face, and Rhaegar raised his hand to wipe it away. When he opened his eyes again, the giant beast flew back without knowing when, spreading its wings and heading towards the island where it landed. Ah! Don't come over. A huge, blurry shadow enveloped the top of his head. Rhaegar couldn't help but scream, and his vision went dark. The next second, Rhaegar opened his eyes and shot up from the bed. What? His chest was rising and falling violently. Rhaegar's nerves were tense, and he looked around in fear. What strikes the eye is a familiar room layout. After being stunned for a while, Rhaegar wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and flopped down on the bed, his voice full of fear. Damn it, it's another nightmare, and it's actually connected to the last time. Obviously, the nightmares in the past were refreshed every few days. This dream appeared in Rhaegar's dream for 2 nights in a row, which was really too much for him. Rhaegar sighed. Maybe this is what I think about every day and dream about every night. Yesterday I was reading ancient books until early morning, and I kept thinking about the dreamer in my mind. It's better now, the nightmare is over. Everything is different, there must be a demon. Continuous dreams are always rare, and they definitely have some kind of prophetic nature. Rhaegar pulled his hair hard and muttered in annoyance. After washing, the servant brought bread plus milk plus fried eggs as usual. Are you going to watch the tourney today, Prince? That after taking the last sip of milk, Eric walked in at the right time. Leia gently wiped the milk stains on his mouth and said calmly, "It's nothing to see. Let's go to the dragon's lair." "I haven't been there yet." "Okay." Eric responded in a deep voice. Before going out, Rhaegar picked up a piece of drawing paper from the table and rolled it up carefully. The dragon's lair is not close to the Red Castle, so the attendants prepared the carriage in advance and got on the road. Exiting the Red Castle and entering King's Landing City, Illich glanced at Rhaegar from time to time, looking like he was hesitant to speak. Tired of being looked at, Rhaegar asked, "Sir, is it my dress that's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that?" "No, I just feel like you're a little down today." Eric expressed doubts. They had walked quite some distance, and it was hard not to worry the usually cheerful prince who was silent the entire time. Rhaegar's eyes were full of fatigue, and he said melancholy, "I have a nightmare again." Hearing this, Illich noticed that the dark circles under the prince's fair face were getting thicker. There is already a trend for panda eyes. "Prince, maybe you should find a bachelor for psychological counseling. Insomnia and dreaminess are not a good sign." Illich gave advice. Rhaegar smiled mysteriously. "No need, my father asked me to learn to accept dreams, whether they are sweet or bitter." "With all due respect, you prefer sweets." Eric frowned slightly. "Don't worry about me. Life is full of bitter, spicy, sour, and sweet flavors. It's not necessarily a bad thing to taste each flavor early." Rhaegar interrupted Illich's advice and asked where there was a good blacksmith shop. Illich said, "There is a good blacksmith shop on Silk Street, and Old Orn's craftsmanship is well known. Then go to this store and buy some things." After making a decision, Illich ordered the driver to drive towards the destination. The royal carriage is not only gorgeous, but also very fast. Walking through the streets in a swaggering way, you enter the famous Silk Street. Finally, we stopped at the door of an inconspicuous blacksmith shop. Rhaegar opened the curtains and looked outside, and he could see a strong young man banging a hammer beside the furnace, sparks flying everywhere. "This is the grandson of Old Orn and a blacksmith apprentice." Illich mentioned something and escorted Rhaegar out of the carriage. "Go and ask your grandpa to come out and tell him that he has a distinguished guest to see him." Tossing a gold coin to the blacksmith apprentice, Illich gave the order politely. "Yes, noble white knight." Seeing the silver armor and white robe, the blacksmith apprentice quickly put down his work and ran towards the shop. Not long after, a short, fat old man with a beard walked out. "It is the owner of this blacksmith shop." Old Orn strode to the two of them and said in a loud voice, "Dear guest, Blacksmith Orn welcomes you." As he spoke, he bowed laboriously to Rhaegar. Rhaegar looked at the fat old man and secretly found it interesting. The two stood face to face. Old Orn was not much taller than Rhaegar, but he could fold him several times horizontally. Rhaegar took out the drawing paper rolled into a cylinder and explained, "This is the design of a bracelet. I want you to make an exact one as quickly as possible." "No problem. Is it based on your wrist size?" "Yes, this bracelet is made to replace gifts that don't match the size." After asking about the customer's needs, Old Aun patted his chest and said confidently, "Don't worry, just come and pick up the bracelet before the sun goes down. I guarantee it will be accurate. I trust Illich's recommendation. Pay him the wages, sir." Rhaegar closed the deal cleanly. Old Aun did not accept the money bag handed over by Illich, and could not refuse. "I don't want money, and having a prince where my work is already the most precious reward." "Oh, how do you know that I am a prince? Why don't you guess which prince I am?" Rhaegar looked at the fat old man funny. Old Orn said seriously, "I have seen the king holding events with his second son Aegon. You are similar in age to him. You must be the eldest son of the first queen, the sleeping dragon Rhaegar." "Sleeping hatchling? What kind of nickname is this? Are you talking about me?" Rhaegar admired Old Orn's wisdom, but did not like the prefixes in his mouth. Old Aun immediately shut up and said to himself that he had said the wrong thing in a hurry. Seeing that he didn't dare to say anything, Rhaegar turned his eyes to Illich and said displeasedly, "Sir, when did I get this nickname?" Illich glared at old Aun in warning, and whispered, "Since the last hunt in the royal forest. The news about your natural frailty and the blessing of the white deer has spread like wildfire, and has been widely circulated among the people. The king has specially issued an order to ban rumors about you, but the people still can't stop talking about it. It wasn't until you welcomed Princess Rhaenyra back on her last voyage and appeared in front of the public for the first time that you got this nickname." Rhaegar frowned and asked, "So my father's restriction on me leaving the Red Keep has something to do with this?" "There are some reasons, but the king has his own considerations, not all. It's enough to have a relationship." Chapter 2, a total of 3 chapters were released in the morning. Please vote for me, please invest, and I hope you will give me your strong support for the sake of the author's fierce updating. Chapter 29 Illegitimate Son. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rhaegar interrupted his defense and said angrily, "My father grounded me just because of some rumors. Isn't it too exaggerated? Rumors hurt people's hearts. There were all kinds of things that were circulated at that time. Your Majesty also doesn't want you to get into trouble." Eric tried to explain. Rhaegar sneered and said, "He is afraid that someone will instill bad thoughts into me." Listen to the prefix of the current version. Sleeping hatchling. Sleeping means that he was weak and sickly in the past, and the young dragon has the dual meaning of young age and death. Let me ask, what is the first thing a young dragon should do when it wakes up from a deep sleep? Of course, keep eating and grow into a real dragon. At that time, what kind of prefix should be assigned? Awakening real dragon or roaring angry dragon. That this was done deliberately by someone who wanted to spread the identity of King Rhaegar's eldest son among the people in order to stir up trouble. A sleeping dragon is a sleeping dragon. It's better than a dying dragon. Lei Jia comforted himself, looked directly at Yillik, and warned, "Give him exactly the same amount of wages, and tell me any rumors about me in the future as soon as possible." Clear. Illich looked serious and accepted the order. "Let's go, take me to buy some toddler toys, and then go to the dragon's lair." Rhaegar turned around and got into the car, his already bad mood worsening. The carriage stopped for a while on Silk Street, and Eric ran around buying a lot of toys. All of them were stored in the carriage before rushing to the dragon's lair. The dragon cave is built against the mountains and is far less deserted than the downtown area. Because it was an impromptu decision, no one came out to greet him at the dragon cave gate. Only 2 guards in armor, seeing the arrival of the royal carriage. A guard trotted forward and asked, "Who is visiting?" "Rhaegar Targaryen, the eldest son of King Viserys I." Illich announced his identity as Rhaegar and stepped out of the carriage alone. Although he didn't see the prince's face, he saw the white knight's white robe. The guard saluted respectfully and opened the door to let him go. The dragon's cave covers a large area and has many entrances and exits. There is not only the main entrance on the surface, but also caves on the back and open spaces on the cliffs. Wait for the meeting dragon to pass through the venue. The carriage was parked outside the door, guarded by its own guards. Rhaegar chose to walk in and walked into the huge open space like a large school ground. At the end of the school grounds is a tall, majestic dome building. Not far away, the bachelor and dragon master who managed the dragon cave arrived. Dragon raisers are dragon raisers, most of whom are descendants of Valyria and have been loyal to the Targaryen family for generations. They are proficient in High Valyrian and can comfort the dragon's restlessness to a certain extent, and are responsible for taking care of the dragon's food, drink, and toilet. "I have met His Highness the Prince." Everyone who came saluted. "Get up, excuse me for interrupting, I just want to see what the dragon's lair looks like." Rhaegar was in no mood to talk nonsense with them and got straight to the point. "Okay, since Maester Bass is not here today, I will be your guide." A young bachelor with black hair, black eyes, and a sallow complexion presented himself. "May I have your name?" Rhaegar asked politely out of basic respect. "Minas Waishue, Your Highness." The young bachelor smiled ashamedly and whispered his name. "Waishue?" Rhaegar was slightly startled, remembering that this was the surname of an illegitimate child. Bastards have different surnames in each region of Westeros. The unified surname in the north is Snow. The king's leader is Weishui. Rhaegar looked Minas up and down and found that his clothes were simple and even patched in places. It seems that the mix is not going well. That's right, illegitimate children are not welcome. Even a well-educated illegitimate child is not welcome among the bachelors. Feeling his gaze, Minas's face changed slightly. A feeling of inferiority came over him, and he gritted his teeth secretly. As an illegitimate child, I don't know how many looks I've received since I was a child. Endure it and it will pass. Raise your head, your parents have given you a face that is not ugly, don't be reluctant to use it. Rhaegar said suddenly. Minas raised his head obediently, with a well-controlled face and a humble smile. I can't advise you to ignore your origins, because the world will help you remember it. But you have your own talents. Not everyone can be a bachelor, so don't underestimate yourself. Seeing Minas' low self-esteem about his origin, Rhaegar gave a few words of encouragement and said no more. Who crawls out of the belly can determine a person's life. This thing is seriously injured and Rhaegar can't help him. Fortunately, her mother worked hard to bring him into this world and gave him enough glory. Thank you, Mom. Silently praying for his dead mother, Rhaegar greeted Minas to lead the way. He had to huddle up under the quilt at night and shed tears when he was sad. Now he had to be his own tour guide, and his working hours could not be mixed with personal feelings. On the way, Rhaegar asked, how many dragons are there currently in the dragon's lair? There are 3 in total, namely Dreamfire, Caraxio, and Syrax. Minas adjusted his mood quickly, showing no signs of the melancholy temperament he had just now, and answered with all his heart. Take me to see it. I haven't had a close encounter with a dragon yet. I'm afraid not, Your Highness. Rhaegar asked curiously, why, do dragons also reject strangers? That's not the reason. Before you came in, Princess Rhaenyra and Prince Daemon came ahead of you, planning to ride a dragon on a trip. Minas told the truth. Rhaenyra is here too. Take me there quickly. I have to meet the dragon. Rhaegar's eyes lit up when he heard that his sister was here, and he was looking forward to being able to pester her and take him to fly around on a dragon. Okay, the princess has just arrived. If we rush there now, we should still be able to make it in time. Minas counted the time and did not refuse. Then what are you waiting for? Let's go. Rhaegar urged Minas to lead the way, and the group entered the dragon's lair and headed towards the open space on the high platform halfway up the dragon's lair. Hurrying slowly, Rhaegar climbed up to the high platform panting. I happened to see several dragon men comforting Syracuse and unshackling its feet. On the other side, Caraxio, who was all scarlet, was ready. Daemon and Rhaenyra were dressed in dragon riding costumes, standing between the 2 dragons and chatting. Elder sister. Rhaegar shouted loudly, ignoring Illich's dissuasion and running towards Rhaenyra excitedly. Hearing his voice, Rhaenyra turned around in surprise and asked, Rhaegar, why are you in the dragon's lair? Legia came closer, took his sister's hand skillfully, and said proudly, didn't I tell you last night that the dragon in the dream said that there was something wrong in the dragon's lair, and I came here specially to take a look. I didn't expect that. As soon as I walked in, I heard that you were there. I thought you were watching the tournament. Rhaenyra looked at him funny and asked, are you coming to me or to a dragon? Of course I'm looking for you, the dragon is behind you. Seeing the 2 dragons at close range, Rhaegar was extremely excited, and his eyes kept spinning on the 2 dragons. This yellow dragon must be Syracuse. He is as beautiful as you. Compared to Calaco, who has a slender body and a sharp head, Rhaegar preferred Syracuse, who was well proportioned, and flattered him with compliments. Syrax is the name of the harvest goddess, so of course she is beautiful. Rhaenyra saw through Rhaegar's little thoughts early in the morning, crossed her arms over her chest, and asked knowingly. So, you have seen my brother, is there anything else? Chapter 3, there are 2 more chapters in the afternoon, so stay tuned. Chapter 30 Rejection of Request. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ride a dragon. I want you to take me flying around on a dragon. Rhaegar couldn't wait to express his feelings. Rhaenyra couldn't help laughing and rubbed his head. I knew you must have something to do with me, otherwise you wouldn't take the initiative to find me. Then my dear sister, can you agree to your brother's request? Rhaegar allowed his sister to rub her, looking at her expectantly. To disappoint you, Uncle Damon and I have made an appointment to fly to Dragonstone and back together. It will be very late by then. Rhaenyra politely declined. I can go to Dragonstone Island with you. It just so happens that I haven't returned to my clan yet. It doesn't matter if it gets late. The desire to control the dragon overwhelmed his reason, and Rhaegar took Rhaenyra's hand and shook it. Seeing the pleading in her brother's eyes, Rhaenyra hesitated. He looked at Daemon with a questioning look in his eyes. Noticing his sister's expression, Rhaegar also looked at Daemon. I wanted to see how this generous uncle would respond. Unexpectedly, Daemon showed a nonchalant attitude and said calmly, if he wants to go, he can take him with me. However, if your father knows that I am taking his heir and eldest son on a trip, he may not be happy. The meaning of this statement is very clear. I can take him there, but if something happens, who will be responsible? A very cliché way of saying no. Rhaenyra had no choice but to hold Rhaegar's hand tightly and said apologetically, I'm sorry, Rhaegar. The distance today is really too far. How about my sister taking you to ride a dragon and fly around King's Landing next time? Rhaegar was unspeakably disappointed when he was rejected. He could not act like Aegon as he maintained his own identity. It would be too detrimental to the prince's tall image. Pulling out the little hand held by Rhaenyra, Rhaegar took a step back and said with a forced smile, okay, then I'll wait for you to fulfill your promise. He spoke very sensibly, but the loneliness in his eyes could not be concealed. You're so good. After watching Dragon's Lair, go back to the Red Keep early and don't run around. How could Rhaenyra not see his loss, but thinking of the agreement with her uncle, she could only turn a blind eye. I will make it up to you in the future, Rhaegar. Rhaenyra thought to herself. At this moment, the Dragonborn unchained Syrax and reported to Rhaenyra in High Valyrian. Princess, you can fly on Sylaxis. Rhaenyra responded in the same language, I know. Rhaenyra took Rhaegar's hand again, led him to a clearing away from the dragon, and handed him over to Illich. Instruction, watch my brother and don't let him run around in the dragon's lair. Eric nodded, yes, princess. Finally, after touching Rhaegar's hair and saying a few words of comfort, Rhaenyra walked towards Sylaxi. Daemon remained quiet and watched the exchange between the siblings. Uncle, let's go. Rhaenyra mounted the dragon's back, tied a safety chain around her waist, and said to Daemon. I thought you would take him with you. Daemon rode on Caraxio and chatted indifferently. Rhaegar is still young. Riding on the back of a dragon and blowing the wind for a day will be unbearable. Rhaenyra explained with a smile. You can control a dragon at the age of 7. Rhaegar is a boy. There is no harm in being exposed to dragons as early as possible. What Daemon said makes sense. Who among the Targaryen family is not a dragon knight? There will be opportunities in the future. Rhaenyra hated the distinction between men and women, and interrupted. Stop talking about Rhaegar, let's see who can fly to Dragonstone first. Daemon shrugged and shut up indifferently. Behind, Rhaegar stood in front of the crowd and witnessed the two dragons fluttering their wings and taking off, gradually disappearing into the clouds. Illich was always paying attention to Rhaegar, and he was relieved when he saw that there was not much emotion under his calm face. He wasn't the only one staring at Rhaegar. Minas stood in the crowd, his eyes resting on the small fists he silently clenched behind his back. Great opportunity. Minas' face remained calm, but he couldn't help shouting in his heart, and his hands and feet were trembling slightly. He was tired of being looked down upon. Those noble-born maesters looked down upon him. Although he obviously has more knowledge than most of the bachelors he has seen, he still cannot change his prejudice against him. After being assigned to Dragon's Lair, he originally expected to be recognized for his diligent work. It even attracted attention from members of the royal family. Members of the Targaryen family can control dragons, and one day he may be supported by a noble person and soar into the sky. It's a pity that this is a scene that only happens in dreams. The dragon controller only needs the dragon Meng to lead the dragon, and does not need a bachelor to report on the dragon's eating, drinking, and diarrhea. He had no access to the royal family at all, and now, there is an excellent opportunity in front of us. When a young prince is ignored by his sister, isn't it the time when he needs someone to comfort and accompany him? The premise is that what you do must be interesting enough, accurately control the psychological needs of a young prince. with thousands of thoughts running through his mind, Minas summoned up the courage and trembled. "Prince, don't you want to see a dragon? There is also a giant dragon named Mtlnovel A in the dragon's lair. It is larger and older than the other two." Rhaegar looked over after hearing this and found that the young bachelor's face was pale, his voice was trembling, and he swallowed nervously. He didn't pay attention to this little thing, as an illegitimate child, taking the initiative to communicate with an unattainable prince was already under great pressure, but his offer did have appeal. "Take me to see it." Rhaegar's voice was calm, revealing an attitude that would not allow him to refuse. Illich wanted to dissuade him, but Rhaegar turned to look at him with cold eyes. Illich immediately lowered his head, not wanting to offend the prince who was in a bad mood. He knew that the prince had been in a very bad mood since morning. "Let's go, we still have a long journey today." Rhaegar took the lead, pushing aside the dragon man who did not understand common language, and went downstairs under the leadership of Minas. There are many nests built by dragons in the dragon cave, most of it is underground to prevent the dragon from hitting the ceiling and causing it to collapse. After receiving the instructions from Rhaegar, Minas smiled inwardly, while leading the way. He used all the vocabulary he had learned in his life to tell Rhaegar about the beauty and power of the dragon Dreamfire. Mtlnovel A is a violent female dragon who once laid several dragon eggs. The dragon egg in Rhaegar's hand came from Dreamfire. Dragons lay eggs to hatch their offspring, but the strange thing is that dragons have no gender, and people's distinction between male and female dragons is wrong. Minas showed off his knowledge by talking endlessly about dragons. "So dragons reproduce asexually?" Rhaegar continued boredly. Minas smiled and said, "I don't know. King Runroy's Mount Vermisor and Silverwing are a well-known companionship, which is different from other solitary dragons." "Okay, Maester, I've heard enough about dragons. When will we arrive at Dreamfire's lair?" After going back and forth about some inconclusive topics, Rhaegar interrupted impatiently. "I'm sorry, Prince." Minas apologized repeatedly, humble to the core, and said nervously, "But we have reached the entrance of the Dreamfire lair, and we will not waste your time anymore." After hearing what he said, Rhaegar realized that they had gone a long way into the tunnel. A huge hole appeared in front of him, and the dark shadow made it impossible to see his fingers. Chapter 4, and the final chapter later.